Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever it is you might be joining us. Welcome to today's session of the Africa Data and AI weekly meetup. I'm going to do a brief introduction before I hand over to the presenter. So the name of the group is Africa Data and AI Community, and we are a subset of Azure Data and AI User Group for Africa. We're in partnership with Microsoft, and we have series of sessions that we present on a weekly and periodic basis. So going to introduce the presenter that we have today. So his name is Mr. Sheyi Oluwawumiji. So he's a consultant at Covenant Technologies. He's an MVP. He's the MCT regional lead for Africa. He's an IT holder, an MBA holder. He's been one of the strong pillars we have within the community, coming from Microsoft Teams to SharePoint, to Microsoft Azure to AI, cloud technology across board. He's also one of the community leads for the Nigerian user group. You can reach out to him on Twitter at S. Oluwawumiji. Okay, my name is Paul Barnabas. I'll be the moderator of today's session. I am a BI architect. Love training, I love teaching, I love getting myself involved in a lot of community work. I also work with one of the foremost FMCGs here in Nigeria. I lead the data management and BI team. So which involves data governance, data architecture, a lot of architecting around end-to-end reporting solutions. Right. I'm also one of the co-organizers of the Africa Data and AI group. You can reach out to me also on Twitter. That's Ask or Barnabas. Okay. So to just give a brief about this community, for some people they might be curious, who are we and what do we do? So we're a community made up of data and AI professionals and enthusiasts, right? We are currently on a journey to democratize data and AI in our African communities, and we are doing all this by leveraging on Microsoft Azure offerings, right? So our faculty, will be using Microsoft technology, Azure platform, the concepts like data management, database administration, AI, data science, machine learning, and a whole lot of other topics around this, from the foundation to the advanced level. So join us every Saturday by 12 noon, GMT +1. Take note that as we are running this session for the AI, we also have a session currently running for the data. So these sessions run concurrently every Saturday. Okay. So going forward, we are currently in a series which is looking at Microsoft Azure AI Fundamentals, right? So AI 900. So if you are an individual, interested in writing the AI 900 exam, or you're just an enthusiast who wants to understand the fundamentals of AI, right? This is the best series for you. So we'll be talking about things like AI workloads, the consideration, fundamentals around machine learning, computer vision, natural language processing, conversational AI. All of these things will be discussed in the course of these classes. It will span from, we started today would actually be the first class for the AI, but it will be running till December. So every Saturday, we'll be having this session. So as I said, also the data stream or data track are also having their session, and they'll be talking about data concept, relational database, non-relational database, the modern data warehouse. If you're interested in learning about SQL databases, non-SQL databases, interested in Azure Synapse, and a whole lot of data-related concepts, you do well to join this session. So you can always reach us on any one of these platforms, WhatsApp, Meetup. You join the Meetup link on YouTube to watch all of our recorded sessions, either on Twitter, Facebook, and then also you can join our sessions for either the data and AI track. So without any further ado, I would hand you over to the presenter. Mr. Sheyi, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Paul, for the introduction. So I might skip the introduction section of mine I'll be sharing my screen now, and I hope you guys can see it. I'll be sharing my screen, and there we take it from there. I'll share my screen. Just for a while. Dude. I'm trying to allow sound, but apparently it's not allowing me to do that. I don't know whether I'm doing something wrong.
I can hear you clearly, actually, and I can see your camera.
There's a video I wanted to play. I want to include sound. Is it giving an error?
No,
Can
no
you see
error
any error on the back?
Not at all.
I don't know why I can't share my video with this. So I can share it quite all right, but I want to share it with video. Include videos, computer sound is not allowing it. Okay. Welcome once again to the AI user group, and we, as Paul said, we are starting a series in order to help people that want to write the fundamental on AI, and we are running both for the data and also for the AI platform. Today, we're going to look at one of the topics that that is needed for you to write your AI fundamental, and that is the future of a common AI workload. Now, under it, we are going to look at, I will skip this. Under it, we are going to look at introduction to cloud generally, because before you can understand what AI, because this is an introduction series, you must be able to, first of all, engage yourself what is cloud technology. And that means understand why cloud technology came into existence when it was introduced and what was the advantage we have over our on-prem environment. And we're also going to look at what is artificial intelligence, and we're going to look at some common artificial intelligence workload. And we're also going to look at AI in Azure, and I will give room for question and answer. Now, let's talk about introduction to cloud. Now, generally, cloud technology has been something that we cannot run away from in the recent time because of the changing world, and the changing world emphasize on agility, emphasize of promptness, efficiency in terms of the computer, in terms of things you use regularly. And that brings us to a point, a checker, to see what make this world to change. People now comes into your environment with multiple mobile phones. People want to have access to information wherever they are. And now, in the past, we have this kind of norm, bring your mobile phone into your environment, but that is changing because people really want to be able to do their legitimate work on their mobile phones. They want to get access to information anywhere. And that brings us to the pointer that the changing world has come into being as a result of the ways things are. So the change that we see is like talking of skilling the workforce for tomorrow. And how do you get that done? You have to get that done today. And one of the efforts of doing that, I like the quote by two guys. One is about Einstein, and the other one is about Nelson Mandela. Now, all they were saying that the day will come that technology will be the mover of people. People will be so stunned with technology that their mobile phone, they can carry tons of information, they can communicate, they can collaborate, they can make emphasis. And this is way back in the 1970s, showing that both of them were inspired. On the times of Mandela, all he has to say about technology innovation is that as far as concerned, that he never loses when he just follow and learn. So I want you to have a perception now. What is cloud generally? Cloud is like a metaphor that entails telling you that an application that you run on your system is accessible by people outside your environment. They are called the remote access. That means a cloud environment is not just someone sitting in the cloud as the image described, but it is as a result of people being able to set up large tons of servers, large tons of infrastructure, which include networking, the applications, and ensuring that people can have access to this server via a specific rate of payment. And in this term, you can only pay as you go. Now, the essence here is that you must be willing to understand that the cloud environment, the digital estates, the changing in our technology way power, our technology view needs to be holistic in our understanding that we cannot do things as we do before. Just like Winston Churchill said that you don't wait at every time to stop at every dog that barks. So you must know that people have said several things about the cloud technology, several limitations, as if like a chaining people down. And if you are not ready to understand the movement and the change that is available there, you might be stuck in the old age, which is the old ways. And we need to move forward. Now, several limitations have been set in terms of the belief about cloud technology. One of them, they said the coverage for us in the part of Africa, that because we have challenge with internet, it might be disastrous for us to have access to information, timely information, being able to collaborate at real time. But in the past 2 years, even when COVID-19 came in, this has changed. Our government now do what we call virtual meetings, now telling us that it is how we place this as priority. People have this belief that security is a trend. I can assure you the way the cloud provider have set up their security mechanism is a way to make sure that in terms of policies, in terms of availability, in terms of being able to have secure algorithm using their AI mechanism to test, to know, to view and to understand the movement of your data. And with the privacy endorsement, which makes you very, very able to sue any of this provider when this breach is done. Now, with the advent of data analysis, using modern way of analyzing the way people interact with software, interact with identities, it has secure over time. Connectivity is one of major, which is leading to the bandwidth. It's one of major threats for people in terms of limiting cloud to this part of the world. But I know it's a challenge, but it is not the final rule. Rules are things, limitation are things that does not allow you to move forward. But there is always a way round about it. Now, with data has been very cheap now with 200 megabytes sell from the mobile phone. Any of this provider, you can have access to internet, which can guarantee you access to your cloud technology. So why are we limited? And one thing that from the government's perspective that limit people, organization on taking this final step and going to the cloud is regulation. Now, Microsoft is coming up with mechanism which we are going to see later on when we look at Microsoft Cloud Provision, which is on Azure, and that's where we are coming. When you talk of Azure, we now move into AI, but you must first understand have a footprint into the whole generology of the historical background that comes with the cloud movement. Now, organizational rule tells you that there's certain data that cannot be taken out of the country, and that has been in place. But Microsoft is as shaking various government, like it did it in China, it did in Germany, and also some part of United States that doesn't allow their data sovereignty is very key. Now, all it Microsoft and shake them to do is for them to provide a data center, local data center, that the government can keep their data, and that can enable them to give access to people within their spectrum. Now, allowing government to have check and balance in terms of regulation, and also giving the people access to the cloud technology. Now, digital estate has changed, and the phenomenon of on-prem is gradually moving to what we call the hybrid. Now, what are the benefits of cloud? Before we go to Microsoft Cloud, we have cost saving. You can avoid costly hardware that for every refresh, an average company, an SME, spend over 10 to 5 to 15 million naira to be able to refresh their servers. It also enables you to have agility, flexibility, and the data sovereignty, which I said is very, very, that means Microsoft, Oracle, Amazon can be sued, and they can sue you when you breach all those data provision laws. Now, in the model of cloud, now we have four major pillars. We have the on-prem, which signify that you manage all your infrastructure from the application down to the networking. Then you have the infrastructure as a service because it is agile and it is scalable. That means I can pay for what I want. Now, I can now also segment what I want in terms of relationship with my OEM. For example, I can have this service as infrastructure as a service, which I can only bring my application, bring my data, bring my operating system, and the OEM, like Microsoft in this case, provide me virtualization, server, and storage and networking. Then I can have it as platform as a service. Now, as platform and service, I only bring my application and data. The runtime, every other thing will be provided by my provider, in this case, Microsoft. Then the software as a service, which we all are used to when we talk of the M365, when we talk of all those applications that runs online. Now we are saying everything is done by Microsoft. I only subscribe and pay for the services I want. Now it brings us to look at Microsoft's own cloud provision, which is called Azure. Now, when this presentation was done, this is a disclaimer to tell you that this might have changed because we have innovation and change that is coming over time when it comes to the cloud technology, because of the agility that is imbued and the speed of the cloud technology makes it very easy for you to have access to changes, and that is rapid with time. Now, Microsoft Azure is now the second largest in the public provision in terms of at this time that this was done, we have 65 Azure region, and those we have 2 for Africa, which is in the South African region. Then you can see how it's dispersed across each of region, and each of them has what they call it availability zone. Now, availability zone for every Azure region, you have 3 of them. Now, what entails you ability to have access to information, to your data, to your AI platform at any time. Then you have as I said, because of the government policy, Microsoft is unshaking people, countries like Germany region, like China, like US government in Virginia, and US government in Oklahoma, they were able to have an agreement with this government to have some local provider rather that can provide a data center that Microsoft can handshake and roll out its application from that region. Now, the way Microsoft set up its Azure is to create what we call availability sets, which also is in pair, and it can be more than two. Availability zone, region, in order for your data set can be deployed. So you have the choice, the flexibility to choose which of these. And there's various services which is categorized into three. The fundamental one, which is the backup, the storage, and anything that talks to more of creating availability for users, for customers, and for consumers. Then we have the mainstream one, which we are going to talk at length on, which is where Azure Firewall, the function, and machine learning, Azure machine learning, where we have the cognitive service, where we have the bot service, and that's where we are going to look at. The other foundational one is the blueprints in terms of the virtual machines, the studio, and the data catalog. Now, each of these Azure is paired according to regions. The essence of this is that at any time, if you have a failure within your region, you have two, and you can even cross to a geo location to be able to have access to your service. So you can have access to Azure through Azure Portal. You can go to, we are going to look at it during the demo section. We are going to look at how we can have access to Azure Portal. What is Azure Portal? We can also have access to Azure using PowerShell, or we can have what we call CLI, client libraries. So this is an example of Azure Portal. You can see it here. When you type http://portal.azure.com, it takes you straight to the portal where you have all your application, and you can see all your application here. You have a dashboard. You can customize this dashboard to meet up your taste. Now, you can also have a cloud PowerShell, which you can have PowerShell connection that is on your local system, which you can connect with Azure, or you can use a CLI through the PowerShell to be able to roll out. You can see the CLI when you open your portal, there's a mark that looks like this sign that looks like an arrow and a dash. When you click it, it launches your PowerShell, and you'll be able to have access to your Azure. You can also, from your PowerShell on your system, you connect and authenticate to Azure, and you can also have communication with Azure. So these are means by which we can get to Azure. So I'm going to skip this because we're still going to go into a demo when we get to the AI region, area section rather. So I will skip this and we'll come back to this when we get. So let's now get to why we are here. We have seen what it takes in terms of Azure, in terms of the specification of what we can do. Now, let's now look at other means by which we can have access to Azure, where we can actually see some things that Azure as a service that can give us. And one of those things is what I refer to as artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is more of creating avenue for you to be able to have access to Azure, to have access to some function that the artificial intelligence will give you. So I'm going to play a video shortly. It's just a 2-minute video to introduce what artificial intelligence is before we go into it. I could not make sound to come into my sharing. I don't know whether Paul can play it. I've shared the link. That is the link for the video. Paul, can you play it if you can get the sound out from your side?
Okay, I'm coming. I'm working on that. So just a moment.
Okay. Let me just unshare and share again and see whether I can make it possible again. Well, or anybody that can. Is it the same thing?
Okay, just a moment. I think I'm trying.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Great.
Are you here?
No, it's not coming. Did you share with volume?
Yes, I did. Yes. Okay, just hold on. Share, yeah, with volume. Can you hear?
Sorry. In nutshell, what artificial intelligence entails is helping us to create software that can imitate how human works. No, artificial intelligence is more of demonstrating through a machine as opposed to how an human can reason. Trying to build up an algorithm, trying to build up a model, trying to create an environment by which your programming can imitate the way you feel, the way you react, the way you take decision. And that is what artificial intelligence is all about. Now, let's now dig a little bit down into this. Now, with that as introduction, I always look at human head as a specimen for AI. Now, human head, if you look at your, sorry, this, I hope this is not head of anybody, but it just showcase what we have. We have our hair, we have our eyebrow, we have our eyes, which you can use for sight, to make, to get contact. We have our nose for smell. We have the ear lobes, which help us to hear properly. We have the lips, we have the jaw, the chin, and the likes. Now, let's now begin to compare what AI comes to do. AI try to imitate what humans, how we feel, how we function. For example, the brain. Now, one function that we can get from AI, if you have watched that video, is making decision that is based on data that is historical, data that is from the present, and data that is from the past in terms of your experiences. Now, getting all those data together, and it allow you, AI make you, how do AI make you? It make you to use it to make informations, to gather information, to express yourself, to make the past experience, to be able to judge the coming present. Now, another thing that human does is feeling. We always feel when something is abnormal. Some people call it intuition, and most time it's high in the female than the male. Maybe because of the build of the male. Now, the feeling there makes you to feel in terms of change in temperature, change in the environment, sensing danger coming, using your adrenaline in there. Now, on AI, the function is to create an abnormal event. How do I recognize abnormal events? I can do that by creating what we call an intuitive model that ensure that at every time I can fit in when there is an abnormality around me. Now, let's take the eye for a human. Now, the eye is for vision. The eye is for interpretation of light. The eye is to interpret physical object, moving object, penetrating object, things that can come near you in terms of 360 degree. Now, for AI, when you look at the specimen at which it's designed, it's designed in order to interpret virtual input that comes from the camera, input that comes from the video, and each of these virtual input, AI will be able to interpret for you what is the feeling of this person. Now, you see some banks now, they use like an emotion icon where they will show somebody that is smiling. So AI is coming to a point by which the customer care, before they can relate with you, when they have deployed artificial intelligence, they can tell how you feel. Maybe when you are smiling, it will tell them that this person is happy, this person is sad. Your countenance can be detected by the camera pointing at you and the algorithm behind to test and to be able to view who you are. Then we have other things that AI can do, like for temporal lobes in your brain and your mouth, which allow you to be able to write, allow you to understand language. That's why you find some people can speak multiple language. People can be able to interpret the way a gesture is being made, by maybe by hand sign. So in AI, the function there is, how do I understand written and spoken language? This can be done by creating an algorithm that can help you to communicate with what people is writing, what people they have in their content, and that can also be can be interpreted by the algorithm speaking out those words. And you can see those when you see audio, if you have listened to an audio Bible, where you can actually hear out the Bible reading, and that gives you each of the punctuation, each of the information there can be detected. AI can take that further. The final thing that I want to look at when I compare AI and the human facet is the body. Now, the body is like it's built with sensitivity, where you can actually use it to engage in what conversation. They call it body language. If I put my hand and fold it, if you are seeing me on the camera now, it tells you that I am not happy. Probably whatever information you are giving with me, I am not happy with it. Now, these are ways by which you can engage with one another. Now, in terms of AI can create what we call bots. These are ways you can create conversational communication between the artificial intelligence program and human. And this conversation can enable you to have dynamic conversation and responding to appropriately. Now we're moving further to look at common artificial intelligence workload. Now, one of them that I want to bring in now, standing from where my viewpoint is that most of this workload is a way at which human trait is interpreted by the programming you have written on AI. The interpretation of human ideology, human feeling, human gesture, the conversation we make, it's all what this intelligence workload is going to do. Now, let's look at what Microsoft have, and we're going to split it into 5 different ones. One is machine learning. Machine learning is where you create model, you learn, you create algorithm, you can improve those algorithms as you build on the information and data that comes in. You can analyze it, you can automate it. You can also have a neutral network where you can have interwoven communication between your algorithm and the human interaction. You can classify this in terms of how you want this relation to be in terms of how you want the machine to interpret it. You can also do data mining, and that all fits into AI. So generally, one of the workload that Microsoft provide for us for prediction, for statistics, based on the data and the statistics you have. And this is one of the pillar of foundation of AI, and that is what the machine learning studio or machine learning algorithm. Now, example is like when I want to predict how likely I need the cost for me to pay insurance claim in my car. Maybe I bought a car that the mileage is 300,000, and I'm going to use it in a region that is harsh. Then the algorithm can help me to test to know how this can be done. So another pillar workload is detecting abnormality. Now, abnormality in a system is what humans consider as intuition, or judging by experience, being able to make judgment that can adversely affect an individual. Now, for AI, we have what we call abnormally detection, and that is like getting a pattern, a system that detect unusual pattern and events that enable you to preempt what your action will be. Now, example is what we have in M365. If you have subscribed to the SaaS provision of Microsoft, you notice you get several alerts. For example, if I'm in Nigeria and the system notice an abnormal behavior with my login. For example, I log in Lagos around 12:54 time right now. Then in next 5 minutes around 12:59, the system detect I'm also logging from China. So it's an abnormal case. Now the abnormally detection from the AI perspective on M365 detect that abnormality and showcase it by sending an alert to you and displaying the application, telling you this is what is happening, and this can easily make you to correct and know that your account or that detail that you have online has been compromised. Now, another aspect of AI workload that Microsoft provide is computer vision. Now, when I was explaining the human head and the AI algorithm, I mentioned that all AI is doing is to imitate the way things are being built on a human structure. Now, trying to use programming, algorithms, and functions to be able to imitate what we can do. So computer vision gives you a way to interpret visual input in terms of camera input, in terms of pictures, images, or videos. Now, example is what we have now in most insurance companies. I know they are just deploying it in Nigeria. Some have that. Now, what they do is that for you to claim your insurance claim, you take the picture of what has happened. They have an algorithm to be able to detect whether it is real or not, what time is being made, and the likes. Now, the other one common workload is the natural language processing. Natural language processing. Now, natural language processing is a way by which human being is able to interpret written or spoken language. Now, with AI, what we are doing is to imitate ways by which an application can see what is written and what is spoken, and it can interpret it and help the customer, the client, to be able to judge. And we can see that in our submission when we try to run it through a bot, where we chat with a machine, which is just a program. That example is when we are used to banking system when Leo was introduced. The essence of having a customer care as a bot is to ensure that humans and that particular machine or that application can talk, and there'll be a way to interpret what the man is saying. So that means with the building of a bot, you are going to increase the way you ensure that human interaction with machine is cemented using natural language processing. Now, finally, what the workload can offer is we call conversational AI. Now, conversational AI example is what I said earlier, is bot that you can engage in human interaction. The bot rely on the natural language to process what you are saying, to interpret. So for me to create such program, I'll write several algorithms to detect, for example, if there is a statement like hello, then the bot should be able to say, how are you today? Are you fine? Trying to relate to you as a human, unlike as a computer or a program. Now after seeing all the workload, the next thing we need to look at, what do we have on Azure? That's why I started with introducing to cloud, then introducing to what Microsoft Azure, which is Microsoft own cloud provision. Now, what are things that, in order to democratize the way artificial intelligence is being built, because of the huge investment that is required to be able to build your own infrastructure, build your own algorithm, and to be able to have lasting solution. You need speed, you need agility, you need compute power, and all this thing is required. So what Microsoft is doing, they take it as a service. Now we're going to look at three major parts of artificial intelligence services that we have on Azure. One is from the bots, the conversational bots. The other one is cognitive services. The final one is machine learning. We're going to look at it together. Now, as I said, what is critical for every artificial intelligence hosted or being built on a cloud technology is the ability to scale it, ability to pay for what you want, ability to give you reliability to perform whatever you are doing it as a service. It must have a good storage. It must have a compute power in terms of performance. Then the services must not be interpreted. Just as I said, I'm going to look at three major ones on Azure. One is the cognitive service. The other one is conversational AI, that's Azure Bot service. And the third one is custom AI, which comes from Azure Machine Learning. So in nutshell, what I'm saying now, Microsoft Azure provides you what we call a platform by which you can run your algorithm. They have everything built on the backstage. You just need to run it. Now it helps you to train your algorithm. It helps you to deploy it, and also give you the ability to manage it in terms of creating model that suit your environment, suit the performance you want. Then the other services we're going to look at is the cognitive service. Now, cognitive service is a suite for developers where you can build your AI solution in terms of things that are relating to vision, custom vision, algorithm with image classification, and etc. And all these are centered on these services that have been built by Microsoft in order to enable you to have a regulated function. And this is properly regulated in terms of democratizing it, regulating it, and regulating it in terms of built-in law in order to have a good AI, because AI can be evil if there is no rule to back it. Then you have the Azure Bot services, which is cloud-based for developing what we call conversation between your machine and the human that is interacting with it. Now, let's go to the demo now. Now, on the demo, there are three major ports link that is here, and this link is where you can have access to the various area by which you can have Azure services on Azure AI service on Azure. One is the machine learning, the other one is the cognitive services, the final one is the bot service. But however, you can have it when you have you must first know that you have a subscription. When you go to this link, there is a room for you to have a $200 free access that can take 30 days. All you need to plug in your credit card, and then they will take like $1. That's about maybe 100 naira within that range from your account in order to have you can have it for a month. So you can run all the application, about 25 of those applications, and run it on all these services. But for this demo, I'm going to use the Azure Portal as the main place to navigate through all our AI services. I hope is there any question before I move?
No questions for now.
Okay.
It's clear.
So this is my AI, my Azure Portal. How do you get to Azure Portal? You go to Azure portal.azure.com. Azure.com. Once you have there, you sign into Azure. It asks you for your credential. As I said, I'm using my own subscription for this demo. You can as well create one for yourself. Now, because I don't have a subscription on this, it will take me to where I can get free services. Now, once you have that, I told you you can either go through all this link, cognitive services, you can go to the bot services, you can go to even the machine learning. You can see start free. They are all going to give you a 30 days free sign on where you can actually pay free once you plug in your credit card. Your credit card will not be deducted. They will not take anything from it. But however, after 30 days, if you still want to use that services, it moves you to what we call pay as you go. And from the pay as you go, they'll be deducting as you go, as you run your services from there. Now, let's go back to my portal. Now, the first thing we're going to look at is the machine learning. How do I create use Azure machine learning? You can either go to the service area, log in, and start. But in this demo, I want to use my Azure Portal as my navigation area. So I go to create a resource. Now, once I go to create a resource, I look for, you can see here under category, because mine is categorized, you can see AI and machine learning. Now, I click on it. You have several, you can see for computer vision, you can do for faces, you can analyze your text. You can also do some it on some virtual machine. Like if you want to run it on Ubuntu and you want to run on ETL Living, for if you are running an IoT service, or Dava Enterprise MR for fraud and some other complex deep learning that you want to do with machine learning. So for us, we're just going to go to simple one. We create a machine learning. The same way you can do that when you have your, because I have my subscription, this is my account. Now, once you come, you need to create your studio. You need to create your workspace. Your workspace is where you can run your algorithm and can build whatever you want to build there. So now the first thing it asks is to see whether you have a subscription. Obviously, he has picked my subscription. Then you need to create a resource group. Now, a resource group is more of where you want all the resources that you're going to use on Azure is going to be. Please, Paul, if I go beyond the time, let me know so I can close this training. So now, once I choose my resource group, I can create a new one. Can actually create a one. Let's call it data and AI. Let's just say group. I just create this for my demo. Now I have created a new group. Now what do I want to call my work group? I can call data AI ML. Now I need to choose my region. Now let's first look at region close to us. We have South Africa. Now you can see these services is not on South Africa region. So the other closest place to us is West Europe. So I'll choose West Europe. The storage, you can create a new one. You can give me one by default. I can also create to relate to what I want, but he has given me one, data AI with a number. The key vault, he has created one for me, where if I want to have insight of my application is running, then it creates for me. And the container registry, which is key. Now I need to create one. I can create this one the same as data AI so that I can have a registry to determine data and AI. Then I use the standard subscription. Let's use basic because I don't want that to incur any cost for me. Now, the next thing, I go to the networking. Obviously I want to be pointing to the public. Now, there are other advanced things that you need to, like your storage access. Do you want to use identity based or credential? There are two ways you can manage the encryption. Encryption is those data that you have on your storage account. You want to keep it, protect it. You can either use Microsoft own managed key, or you can create your own customer managed key. So the next thing I need to do is to tag it. Tag it is how I want to be able to have a metadata that can address my machine algorithm or how I want to have access to it. Once I have, because I don't need to tag this, it's just a demo, I review it. Once it's reviewed, I need to create the machine ML Machine Studio. Now, you can also download a template. For example, if you are looking at automating replicating this same Create Studio on your machine algorithm in future, you can download this template and you can run this template to create more Machine Studio. I create it, it takes some few minutes, and once it initiate the deployment, and that is done. Now, because of our time, let's look at the other other services we want to look at, and that is already deploying it. So let's allow you to do. Let's go back to create resource. Then we look at the bot service. You can just say the bots. It tells you Azure Bots. Now, this is another way that you can create an AI service that you can run on Azure. Now, the same method, you can create it. Once you create, it takes you to a wizard that tells you how you can create your Azure bot. Now, once you create your Azure bot, you can now go to the Azure bot service to able to run it. Now, you need to create an handle for it, like a name. You want it to, for example, let's say the bot to handle language understanding. The resource, we just created one before, data and AI group, and he's saying the bot cannot handle the following character A to Z. Must start with, okay, you must use it in lowercase. So what happened? Quest port ID is not available. Let's just put 221 to differentiate it. Okay, we now go to the pricing. Now, pricing is why I said you need to have your subscription. They can take the money directly from here, or you can go on the Azure bot service too. So let me change this to, you can change the pricing, because I don't want to use this and I don't want it to is still launching out. So I can change my pricing and now create your ID. You can see the pricing, the free one. I prefer to take the free one. and select it, because I apparently I'm not going to use this. Then I need to create a Microsoft application ID. I can create one. The ID requires to create the resource that is needed, and you can create a new one. You can see create a new one for me just for this demo. Then I review that, and I am up with this. Then it creates it. So let's go back to our notification. Let's see the deployment of the machine that we just did now. Now this is the deployment. Now this is where you are going to run your algorithm. You can increase the protection. You can change the setting. You can also create an alert, and from here you can launch your studio. Once you launch your studio, the studio is where you'll be running your machine algorithm, creating your model, injecting your data, and the likes. So let's go back to the other notification. Let's see whether it has finished deploying our it's still, I think it's still running. This. So this is the machine studio. It first of all, it guides you by taking a tour towards whatever you want to do, and that starts from training, registering the data, training the model, and evaluating the model before you deploy it. So this is just like a guide for you, for those that are starting. This is an introduction. Then you can see your notebook where you have all your information. You can also code in other language like Python, running the SDK that run with sample. And you can also automate the ML. You can design it. Now, design mode is where you just drop and drag. Now, there's some data, when you are building your machine learning, you have your data set experience. Although this particular introduction is not a deep dive, is in the other training that you have. This just to tell us how we can build our machine and how we can have it. So let's go back our home and let's see whether we have our bots service created. Apparently it's still not here. Let's do the last one, which is a cognitive service. Cognitive service. Now, the same way where the way we went through the bot service, the cognitive service also is created by going to the service to ensure you have that service done, created, and you launch that service. And from that service, you can now start creating whatever you want. Now, to create one, the same method, you have to go through the group. You have to look at your region, and look at all that. South Africa is not listed here. The other one that is close to us is West Europe. You name this data and AI. Then we have pricing we want, because we took free one, and I think that's where we could not get that one done. Now let's see whether this can let's see whether this pricing is giving me a standard and full detail. There's a way you can check your pricing. There's a pricing timetable where it tells you by region how much it's going to cost you. So it's essential before you deploy this to have this at the back of your mind, to know how much it will cost you to run these services on Azure. And that cumulative make you to, because there are services you can, like Q&A maker, to be able to create question and answer. You might want to do speak services. That means people talk and you interpret those talk. And you want to do custom vision. How these are things that you need to prime yourself with before you actually take the tiers of pricing you want. So let's just, because of this demo, let's use the standard and I make sure I take it off immediately after the you also need to, if you want to tag, you can tag it. And for this, it's a validation fail, require information is missing. Let's see the information that is missing on the basic side. You can see it is already telling us here. Okay, check the box, acknowledge, yep, and that's it. And that's it. You see, it's very intuitive, very easy to create. And once you get to the point, you create it, and let's see whether this will be done. Validation was okay, and we're going to finish the introduction, is submitting it, is deploying it, and we have our cognitive services already created, almost done. And I don't know if there's any question, Paul, for this particular. I can go to the resource, and this is my cognitive service. You can see I have created the registry, I've created the email. So all this is done on West Europe, which is close to me. Then I can, from here, I can start editing, creating my resource and creating whatever other things I need to do from the cognitive service. So when I go to the cognitive service now, I can log in and start putting my my service and start building my solution. Paul, is there any question?
No questions so far. It's been a whole lot learning the understanding, learning the concepts, learning the fundamentals of AI. So far, the demo also has been very helpful. I think we have a visitor, Ezekiel. Ezekiel also, do you have any question?
No, not really. I just joined in. I left the other call. Okay. We rounded up on the data track, so I'm just coming in. So I don't really have any questions so far.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Then that I'll just round up with my pass. Let me just go to my slide. There's no question, and I say thank you to everyone. And I'll see you next week for the next track on the topic is responsible
Azure,
AI.
Yes, the Azure
How
AI.
do we, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very, very much, Mr. Sheyi. It's been a fully loaded session. You've talked, I think you breezed through the whole course content of the AI fundamental, specifically emphasis were made on the introduction. We went into topics relating to understanding, even translating our day-to-day activity into how AI, essentially works, how we're able to solve problems with AI, how we're able to translate issues that we encounter on a day-to-day and leverage on AI to solve them. And then he also led us into a demo session of how to log in into Portal, Azure Portal, and that's through portal.azure.com. We also got to learn how to, with the use of subscription, create a machine learning model. Same also goes with a bot, Azure Bots. So I'm sure we all look forward to the next class where we learn, about responsible AI and other details. Thank you very much. Thank you everyone for joining this session. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. See you next week.